Hey. You. Hi there. It's 4:19. Do you have a minute? Good. Then let's pack a bowl. 'Cause it's time for Cannabis Talk, a special 420 themed segment of the Almost Daily Zencast, hosted by spiritual cannabis mystic, the incorrigible Mr. Zappa. Let's get lit, folks!
On today's episode, myths, lies, facts, and theories.
Yeah.
That's that good stuff right there, man. Hello and namaste. It's 421. And if you smoke weed and you listen to this podcast, I hope you already packed your bowl and started smoking weed. Because we missed 420 and it happened over a minute ago. I am your humble and often quite ridiculously high animatronic. No, that's you. You're over there, animatronic guy. DJ said, stop trying to make me say the wrong things. What was I saying? Let's play some music. I've totally just played this one really recently, haven't I? I have. You don't want to listen to it again, do you? He doesn't want to have to listen to it. Nobody wants to listen to this again. It is kind of fun. This one's just so much fun right here in the middle. I really like it. I really like the way it builds. Welcome back, friends, from an unnecessarily early music break. Which, honestly, if I'm going to be really upfront about it, it's because I wanted to smoke more weed. And I was running out of things to say. I am at a convergence, a nexus point, if I'm going to be really honest with you. I find that I enjoy talking to complete strangers on the internet, one way or the other. And if I do it like a radio talk show, I like it even more. And if I do it with a little bit of crazy music in it, it's even more fun. And therefore, I want to do it every day and get paid for it. Right? Because enough people listen and that generates ad revenue and shebang. I don't want to charge people money to listen to me talk. That's stupid. I would charge people money to listen to me talk if I was doing it on stage with a joint and a cocktail and a suit and like I was in coattails and it was stand up. But I don't think I'm that funny. Like I don't do punchlines. If I had like a select company of individuals that were really great conversationalists, because I consider myself a really great conversationalist. Throw me in a room, mix any kind of group of people in there, and I can get in with anybody and at least feel comfortable trying. And I would be central to helping the group sort of find its focal point, so that everyone gets involved and is having fun and doesn't feel like, I like to hobnob. I like to chit chat. I like to make good conversation. And way back in ye olde ancient days, long before the world ended and we all got locked in our rooms forever, like naughty children, I could and would, on occasion, literally, socialize and hobnob with complete random sets of random strangers. And successfully enjoy, not feel weird by not have it be a big ordeal or a stress load, sort of pseudo hosting. I find myself in a situation where I help manage the crowd because theater, and there's always a crowd. Hopefully if you're doing well, there's a crowd. And I've done theater in various venues. I'm not saying that this happened all the time in all the different venues, but I've had enough experience to know that in a random crowd full of random people, I can mingle and I can have interesting conversations with folks without, without stepping on toes and without, understanding boundaries. I'm pretty aware. What's the point? Why am I talking about this? I don't even know. Because it's 4:27 p.m. on a Monday, February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. And if I'm not mistaken, I already did an episode today. What? Why am I on the air doing a second episode? Because I wanted to. Because this is my passion. Because I wanted to talk about stuff relating to weed. Because, also similar but slightly different, logistically, I hadn't done a Cannabis Talk episode in quite some time. And I happened to look up, and it happened to be just the right amount of time that I could comfortably get set up and ready to, drop a show live. Which is funny because, no one's listening. I don't think there's anyone in the chat room. No. But that's fine. I'm not complaining. I don't do it with enough consistency. And I'm the first that is aware. I'm self-aware of this show's flaws. And I beg you to pardon them and listen to it anyways. Because you find it fascinating and interesting. And it was just 10:10, right on the dinger when I said anyways. And it's time, friends, I think, to... oh no, that's one I've already played very recently. I think all of these are. I think at this point I need to not play any more music because I've played them all multiple times on the show very recently, and I should not bore you with stuff. Oh, there's new music I can grab. I can do it and talk to you at the same time. I can chew monkeys and blow cereal balloons. What? That didn't make any sense, especially the chewing monkeys part. Never chew on a monkey. It's just not. Let's not go there. Erase that I said any of that. I guess I can't poke at things on the screen and also speak entertainingly without coming across the wrong way all at the same time. Or can I? Boom, I got that. That one I know is new because I made it today. So, have I shared this exciting news with you guys yet, or have I not? If I have already, you'll just have to forgive me for rambling about it a second time. But, so this music you hear on the show, it comes from one of multiple places. Recently, and especially if it is DJ Zed. If it's DJ Zed, it's engineered digital loops that I tinkered with and mixed myself, right? Using one of various apps at my disposal. And so the exciting news is the one app I liked the most and I found most intuitively interesting crapped out on me right when they issued a big new update. And I don't know if it was my bad. I don't think it was. I shoulda, coulda, woulda figured this out sooner if I just needed to do this and only this the entire time. Because I waited like a few months. And I also noticed that they issued several small nondescript updates. But the app, Remix Live, which I generally endorse, and honest, like no one's paying me to say that. I just generally like the app. And if you're into and you want to learn, figure out if you want to get into it further, this is like a pretty excellent beginner, because by no means am I pretending to be a professional. So it crapped out for a while there and I wasn't using it. And just recently, as in like the last week and a half ago, I did something on a whim. I was like, well, it still doesn't work, even though there was some other update not that long ago. There was a series of updates. And then they sort of stopped updating things. That's fine. I'm sure more updates will happen. And I had left them this sad, you can't go negative stars, so I can't claim it was a negative review. I was just like, I had been giving it 5 stars. It's now down to 1 because it crashes out on me now after update 6 and doesn't seem to work. I uninstalled it, and I'm to be. I don't think there's any way to figure it out other than to literally travel back in time. And as I don't remember the exact date that it happened and the exact hour in which it happened, in order to do it correctly, I'm not going to waste the time, energy, and effort, and sort of like overall hassle that it is to go jumping around through time, especially for this particular question. So I'll never really quite know if I had done that, if I had uninstalled the app and then reinstalled the update from the very beginning, would it meant that I would have been able to have used it this whole time? Maybe. So, if they're listening, Remix Live guys, I doubt that they are, right? But just in case, you never know, it might catch on, and suddenly they're like checking out the show. I love the app. Thank you for whatever you did to fix it, because it definitely crapped out and it wasn't working there for a while. And now it's working again. Bless it. And I love fiddling with it and remixing audio bits and stuff. So I'm conducting a long-term experiment. The first is to find the collection of genre apps, not apps, the collection of genre packs. Excuse me, hold on a second. What am I rambling about? I had like the hiccups there, the kind that like were just sort of stuck. And I could neither cough nor hiccup nor clear them out. I had to just like, and I was worried I was gonna do one of all three altogether, which is the worst sound ever. Luckily I didn't. And I can now, relatively speaking, continue without interruption. Relatively speaking, breathe clearly. Music, experimental. The next phase of which is the first phase of which is like making, getting to know the various apps that I'm using to make these weird bursts of digital noise, and then find like themes that can be mixed together, and then get a DJing app, like an actual like DJing app, and one that's got a really great AI automatic DJing so that I don't have to think about it, and then organize them according to playlists that would sound good DJ'd together. And then get like mega long tracks and produce like an album made that way. I don't know. Some of you may have followed that. Others of you are going, what the bloody double HFS is he talking about? I don't know why I added an S at the end. That's a weird one. Happy 420. Welcome to the show. All that part is over with. What are we talking about? So many things to talk about. So many thoughts I've had. You know what? One of the things that is a burden for me, it burdens me with great grief, remorse, and sadness, is that some of the funniest shit comes to me when I'm not in the middle of doing a podcast episode, and there's no recording device like at hand anywhere, and by the time I get to one, it's gone. Whatever I thought, said, blurted out loud has evaporated. Such is the way of my mind, especially when I'm absent-mindedly entertaining myself. At any rate, here we are, and you are listening, so I should produce some kind of things to talk about. We're going to talk Cannabis Talk, and I did indeed grab a screen grabby bits, but did it take? Did I get it? It might not be there. Oh, that's okay. I did this. Fundamentals, myths, lies, facts, theories, cannabis, all there next to it. We're going to talk about those things today on the show, even though I've been rambling at you for 20 minutes already. Ha ha! That's how you work it. No, I'm kidding. No, this show is really meant to be me and one or two other people having a conversation. So this would have been 19. Can you imagine how much more interesting these 19 minutes would have been if it had been me and a fellow stoner person, a fellow cannabis enthusiast, preferably, like a cannabis lady or two. Just like each one, like it's mind blowing. We would have been able to get in so much more interesting chit chat and talk, and maybe jam in some structure. But instead, it's just me. So it's a darn shame. Right, the new one that I know is new because I recorded it today. It's time for you to enjoy it. Here it goes. It's called Gotta Chop Them Tight. D to Z. What does that even mean? It's from your album Experimentalis, an electro remix live audio entertainment track. Yeah. Yes, and that's why I think robot should not be considered a disparaging word. I mean, otherwise you totally ruin the phrase robot dance music. Like automatronic, living mechanizoid dance music just doesn't have the same natural roll off the tongue. Cyborg dance music, there's just something wrong with that word. Like, who invented that word when WTF was wrong with you? Welcome back, folks. It is I, your cybernetic artificial life replicant vessel for artificial intelligence and consciousness from a latter days dimension. No, not the church. Just, it's a dimension of days beyond that which, an event that doesn't happen here. So, you're lucky that event doesn't happen here. It's guaranteed not going to happen here. That's the only reason I, as a fictional literary character, am here explaining things to you, instead of the other way around. But it's a mystery, a conundrum wrapped inside of enigma. I really like that track, Zed. Kudos on ya. That one's tight. Gotta chop him tight. Oh, maybe I think I get it now. Because I'm an idiot. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to keep it. So that's what this list is down here. Scrolling it. All these are songs I've already, if my podcast was a movie. I really like that one. I'm going to play it again. I'm just going to let them sit for a while. But the rest I gotta delete. I gotta purge, and we need fresh new tracks that don't all sound exactly alike. Okay? Cool. Right. So what were we talking about? Fundamentals. What are the fundamentals of weed? Fundamental number 1. Wait until you are of age. That might vary by jurisdiction. So fundamental number 1, take a step backwards. No, it's a tricky one. Which one is really number 1? Find out your local jurisdictional, what your local jurisdiction rules are, and then find out. I guess you have to find that out first, and then you find out when you come of age, right? Just like you shouldn't drink before you're 21. I think everything should be leveled out at 21. Maybe round it up a little bit. Give everyone a running chance. And 444, boom. The gods agree with this idea. Drinking, going to war, smoking weed, driving. You should wait until you're 22. That should be all the new rule. You should study how to drive and be allowed to drive under supervision for a year. Or you can start that when you're 20. There you go. Weed smoking, you can also start, well, no, you should wait on that. That one should be the longest. And alcohol, both of them. I think 22 is good. It's a nice, whole, magical, repeating number, which makes it feel extra bizarre and good. And there's a real reason, right? I'm not a blind faith believer in science, but here's a little bit of science that I think everyone can get behind, if you get my meaning. The brain wants to finish developing before you start bitch smacking it around with stimulus and chemicals and downers and uppers and all kinds of other crazy nonsense. To that end, and this gets a little weirdly radical and strange, but I was raised to be like a social progressive, but a personal conservative, if that makes sense. Like, I don't disparage conservative values. I think that the values as they are currently expressed don't make any sense anymore. So that's a different problem, right? Like, it's okay to be a little bit conservative about stuff. Like, hypersexualizing teenagers and young, like, that's, and I agree. Like, we shouldn't be, we should give young people a safe space to be free and away from, and be just with their own peer group. But how do you draw the line, right? Like just in the United States alone, you have the stupidity of the fact that different states have different ages of consent. So that's got to get sorted out. And maybe a little bit older is a little bit better. Is 22 way too late? Is that too crazy of a thing? I don't know. I'm contemplating it though. Here's the thing. Remember what I was saying in a very recent episode. To achieve balance, you don't just go in one direction, right? You have to balance and counterbalance, if that makes sense. To achieve whole balance, right? There's like a balancing process and a counterbalancing process because everything reacts and is reactive. These age limits, as they are usually deployed by bodies of legislation making, to make that sentence make the most sense, legislators, they generally come off and feel vaguely, if not downright oppressive, because people, especially people in this time frame on this planetoid, have a tendency to write laws in the most minimalist, reductive, punitive. Did I pronounce that one right? Punitive. It's about punishment, kind of way, and it's like it makes sense, but it also doesn't help as much as you might think. Because while it's great to have clearly defined, I meant clearly, not easily, easily accessible, easily explained, clearly defined, not that achieves this by any shape or form. The penal code, the entire, justice system, if you want to bundle everything into one big label, is simple is not its word. Like easy to understand, easy to approach, easy to explain to people of any age, let alone people young and in school. They're not ace on that, are they? They could do a whole hell of a lot better, is my point. So, gearing back, what's missing, in my humble opinion, and what makes these age restrictions, even as they are now, like, I gotta be how old until I can drink, and I can be how old until I can drive, and blah, blah, blah. They were written as, in a structured mentality, sort of like events, consequences, transgressions, laws, and punitive damages kind of mentality, without very much consideration for the human phenomena, the lived and living experience that is what it is to go through that transformational process, right? And I was rambling about how we don't give very great educational support for romance, let alone intimacy, in this world, generally speaking, culturally speaking, right? To not pick on anybody. Nobody's country. We could do a breakdown. Sure, that'd be great. Break it down. Let's see who gets the worst, who gets best. They're all generally kind of crap. No offense. In terms of, established, middle of the norm systems of conveying wisdom, deep, meaningful, helpful wisdom about the change, about the turbulent emotional roller coaster that is that portion of your life, that chapter in your life, about the chemicals your own body starts to dump on you in itself, and all the nuances Never mind the birds and the bees, just the nuances of the lived experience of it. And adjusting to, and the eventual evening out, right? It all gets kind of worse before it gets better. And then eventually you get the hang of it, and then it becomes dull, and then it becomes this old habit thing you completely ignore and neglect. There's so many things wrong with the world, as we were just discussing. But one of the places that we can, could, should, would, is instead of telling kids, young people, what to do, what not to do, we should all have a deeper, more spiritual, more wisdom-based understanding of ourselves, of each other, of our bodies, of our divinity, and of the many ways that it gets befuddling, confusing, difficult, alarming, surprising, shocking, disorienting, and otherwise outrageous and enraging to be phenomenologically alive in one of these ambulatory avatars made of meat and blood and bone and pheromones and hormones and shit, right? Like, because we do, even in the best of times and in the best of situations, not that great of a job. No offense. Y'all did your best, and that's admirable in and of itself. But here's the thing, right? Wow, I'm rambling about stuff that I've probably already rambled about before. Fundamentals about weed. That's where I was. Fundamentals about weed. And while we're going off on a tangent about weird... Oh, the counterbalance. What's missing? For all of those rules that are so oppressive, yada, 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 spinning out of control with my rambling, for all those rules that can be so oppressive because they lack a nuanced understanding of what were actually going on, because we lacked a nuanced understanding of what we were going through, and we reflexively, respectfully, respectively, and representatively, all of us, the society, didn't do the greatest of jobs of educating ourselves generationally, epoch over epoch. And one of the things that was missing was any support system to help negotiate all of the crazy making that is part and parcel of going through that tumultuous event. Especially since it used to be quite literally the beginning of the end, right? And it no longer is. And we seem to be heading into a longer and longer lifespan scenario, which means that puberty keeps happening in what appears to be like an earlier and earlier part of our life. Whereas there was a time when by like 15, 16, 17, 18, you were a full-grown adult, and by 28, you were getting old, and it was a miracle you were in your late 30s. And I know that sounds silly, but that was not that long ago. Not really. Not in evolutionary time. Not in geological time, that's for sure. And there's meaning to that, right? We weave all the dots of meaning together. We get a little confused. We get a little disoriented. What the bloody hell is he talking about? I don't know. But it doesn't matter, because it's Cannabis Talk. And as long as it's interesting, it passes for entertainment, right? I'm being cynical. But I'm also being serious. Like, really serious. Fundamentals of cannabis, as opposed to crazy ideas about the whole universe and people and how they fit into the universe. Crazy fundamentals about cannabis. Let's talk about a few. Besides, know what the age limit is, and don't... Like, if you are a young person, you shouldn't be listening to my podcast if you're that young, right? Because this is of age age restricted. But so we should support the culture that prevents people too young. Why? Because literally, as I was beginning to say, like what feels like an eternity ago, the brain begins developing at a very early age in an interesting new way as it prepares to go through puberty, and it continues to do that into the mid-20s. Why? Because we didn't used to survive that long, and it was like that maturing of maturity level. We peaked by like 27, 28. That was it. Those were the high golden years of adulthood. It isn't so much anymore. No offense. And that is by virtue of the fact that we have out-evolved the fundamentals of evolution. One of the fundamentals of weed is that it isn't a party drug. I've talked about this before many times on the show. It responds to your conscious intent, right? So there's good reason to respect the law and build community around normalizing it, something that we do after we reach a certain age, because then the benefit that it brings to us is stronger, and its potential negative impacts, which are huge, potentially the younger one is too early exposed to it, all of that gets mitigated, right? The scary, problematic thing that the fearmongers like to point out is the very real fact that at too young of an age, cannabis consumption can have negative impacts on brain development. Now, that's not 100% true for the rest of your life. That's why you it's very meaningful to say, like, wait until you're in your mid 20s before you add things to your experience pleasure set, right? Like, we should build like that, and that shouldn't be an oppressive thing that we just say no to kids, and then if they break those rules, they get in trouble, and then it's a culture of incarcerating them in some sort of junior mini jail, scaled down hyperbole of imprisonment. That's ridiculous. To come through in full circle on one of these very large, complex thoughts. These rules, if we bring in other supportive things to boost and assist the lived experience of all people, because going through puberty is a pain in the patootie, to put it in a cutesy wootsy way. It just is. It's a pain in your patootie, and it's when all other things being quote unquote normal, put a pin in my, like asterisk mark of like, I have a weird jaded opinion of what normal was / may or may not be anymore. But let's presume that there is a normal for right now. That all other things being normal, like just going through puberty and dealing with the emotional roller coaster of all that, it's a challenging thing, even on the best days. And if we limit things that are very, like, the most damaging to ourselves, to our bodies, to and our development, right? And we make these informed decisions, like, collectively, and we educate the young people about why we make these decisions. Because one of the biggest pains in the butt about the way society is run and the way the culture operates, and the way people relate to each other in this absent-minded system of oppression, is that we don't explain very much to young people. And we ridicule parents who do are often ridiculed, right? And that's not 100% true. And obviously there are examples of being the exclusion to that rule, the example of they're not, they're doing a whole different thing. What's the phrase? There's a phrase I'm trying to remember that's not coming up. Doesn't matter. Happens all the time. Moving on. If we created a more supportive culture and therefore, had room and space to more intelligently explain these restrictions to any given individual as they're growing up, they might go through a better, healthier, less toxic adolescence transition into adulthood from pre-adolescence through adolescence into adulthood, right? And if we support it with things like, you don't have to stress out about learning how to drive, because I don't know about you, but that was fucking stressful. And you throw that into the mix in the midst of being in school, being in high school, and coping with all new weird systems of learning because they don't really prepare you for high school. They assume that it all makes sense from one grade level to the next, and it fucking doesn't. Right? Am I right? Okay. What does that have to do with weed? A lot of people smoked weed kind of hella young, and a lot of people are comfortable with their kids smoking weed relatively young. And I don't want to seem judgmental or whatevs. I just want to encourage the cannabis community as we build this new culture that we talk about in these segments. Because that's the driving theme here in this segment, is that we can't let the free market and all of the capitalizing interests that are just there to turn a dollar, they're there to turn profit on investment and have ownership over, the high value and high throughput establishments, et cetera, et cetera. No need to diss them, but also you got to stay wary, right? Like, big industry creeps in and anything can become the big industry version of whatever it is, which becomes a toxic thing. One of the fundamentals is beyond that, like, know your local, regional, jurisdictional rules that apply and know how to follow them, right? Discern how to tell a myth and or a lie apart from the facts, and support and endorse the intelligent, public discourse discussion of new, more intellectually honest and intellectually open-minded and explorative, experimental theories about cannabis, right? Because it still gets all kinds of bad press and all kinds of bad rap from people. There are still people in the myths and lies categories. There's the double whammy of it being the devil's lettuce, right? Like, it's the devil's tool to get into you somehow. The devil's tobacco. Like, no, the devil does not. I really, really doubt that the devil smokes weed, because he'd be a lot less of a raging a-hole as he is described in the fear-mongering. And to the best of my ability to discern after an entire adult lifetime of having a relationship with cannabis, I do not feel as I am to be fit to be that I could be described as being filled with the devil. So smoking the devil's cabbage has not ruined me. Can it be used incorrectly? Abso-fucking-lutely. Can you, vis-a-vis the internal, inherent, psychosomatic, like, bad habits, bad habit-forming, addiction, ego traps, addiction traps of our own inner workings, can we build a bad crutch-like relationship with cannabis? Of course. But more interestingly, can it be a powerful spiritual tool for tuning into the internal world of energy and frequency and body awareness? That's the golden ticket, friends. That's where it's at. It's totally the wrong track. I was going to play a different track, and I feel like such a jerk. This is a track I don't even want to keep anymore. I'm going to fade the track out really gently and apologize to you and delete it. And scroll over here to where I should have been and play this song, but remember to turn the volume up first. So, build a better cannabis culture. That's my jam. That's the mission. That's what I want to share about. That's what I want to talk about. And so these things, we have to create better theories about what cannabis is and how it works. And there's some cool theories, right? Like, I'm not panning all the awareness raising efforts already about the benefits and potential healing effects that cannabis has. But how many people are doing large studies on cannabis as a source of nutrition? Not that many, not yet. I mean, there might be. I probably, if I were to say absolutely zero studies have ever been done about the nutritional value of cannabis, I would probably have to stand corrected, because that would probably be technically dead wrong, right? Because someone probably has. But have they done it in such a way? Have enough studies been done at large enough scale that it becomes a norm and mainstream accepted fact, even amongst people who don't want to eat it because whatever, it's still weed and they hate it, that it is in fact nutritious and could, should, would be eaten as food? That's where we're at, if I may be so bold, friends. As you hang out with your favorite cannabis enthusiasts, when you go visit your local dispensary and you talk about stuff with all your 420 friends, make an effort to bring this idea up and see who's all heard of it before. Because I think too few people have heard of it, and we need to drum up awareness and make it a point of interest. Because obviously we're putting THC and CBD and some of the other extracted, associated chemical elements into things that are edible. But have we tried just eating the plant? I know I have, and I've talked about it before, obviously, and I think more people should get. We should get the culture to that place where more people understand it as such, and endorse it and support it, and it's chill. To bring back and probably misparaphrase one of the oldest OG original pro cannabis culture memes. That it'd be great to live in a world where it is as popular, or I would rather live in a world where it's popular to grow your own weed than as it is as popular to brew your own beer. I forget which way it was actually structured. If it was about replacing it or about being as cool as. And I dropped my pen. But you get my point. There you go, friends. I'm going to stop rambling at you because I have more weed to smoke and then some entertainment to consume, to think about, and maybe address on a future episode of totally irrelevant media reviews. But yeah, remember this thing. Whenever you're feeling like, oh, well, what can I do to help? You are society. You are the culture. Make decisions. Explore your thought experiments. And make decisions based on that. And do real research. Do real research. Don't be one of those goofballs that talks about doing research when all they've really done is watch about 11 YouTube videos that all kind of flowed from the same set of source algorithm keywords, et cetera, et cetera. And a person who does real research, and why people shouldn't run around throwing that word around, because real research means you've done it, you've built the thing, you've meditated 5 times a day for 90 days to prove that that's better than 3 times a day. That's research. You know what I mean? You're not involved in a giant lab study to prove... No, then you haven't done research. You've watched a YouTube video and you've read a couple of other people's posts talking about stuff they found, probably through YouTube videos, and you take a lot of word of perfect strangers at face value when that's the very first thing you should be doing, is questioning it. But I digress. We can, could, should, would, ought to be researching cannabis as super green food. I know, old hat, talked about it too much already. Why? What is going on, friends? Why do I do this? Because it's been too long and I've been rambling forever. I'm going to close this out. I humbly thank you for tuning in to this bizarre rambling episode of Cannabis Talk. Thanks for being part of this small and intimate weed circle. Don't forget to pass it on the left-hand side. I don't know why. It's apparently some kind of superstition. The irony is, in Mirror Universe, everyone passes it to the right. and makes fun of people who pass it to the left. Meh, meh, meh. That's the way it goes in an infinite honeycomb parallelogram of infinite honeycomb parallelograms. There's a universe of universes within universes everywhere. And no, it's not just because I'm stoned that I talk this way. I talk this way because I believe all of that to actually be the case. And getting stoned helped me to phenomenologically experience it. What was the one thing I was going to talk about that I totally didn't? I was going to ramble about, and maybe should I save it? I should save it. I should just ask it as a prompt question for future reference. What's the craziest thing? You ever, like, pack a bowl, get ready to smoke it, and then, like, get into smoking it, and then lose track of time and place and events for a hot minute because you're either, like, having an idea or enjoying the free-form visuals that happen while you listen to music or something like that, and you look up from being lost in a moment and you're in the midst of something you normally wouldn't be doing. What's the weirdest thing you ever caught yourself doing when you got really, really high? If you're a stoner that occasionally and safely gets really, really high and finds themselves doing really weird, funny things that they didn't expect themselves to be doing, please, please, please let me know so we can discuss them on the show. Also, one of the other fundamentals, besides informing yourself for the age of participation and knowing all the rules and regulations, is whatever you do, whatever you think you know, and let me end the show on this, because it's the one thing that I get cranky and I sound like an old-timer about. Whatever you think you know about yourself and your relationship to cannabis, and I respect everyone. And many people have, the world is full of people with a diverse array of opinions about cannabis. And I respect everybody's effing choices, whatever. Whatever you think you know, if you're an enthusiast, please, please, please do yourself the favor and respect yourself and others on the road as much as you would want an alcoholic to. And do not smoke while you drive. Just as you wouldn't want someone drinking too much booze as they drove the 2-ton mega death vehicle of crashing into things. You should respect that, even if, and I get it, trust me. I know cannabis culture enough to understand the whole like learning curve, and then you become very high functional, etc., etc., etc. But bottom line is, if you want to go for a hike and be stoned, like, arrange it so that you give yourself plenty of time so that you don't get into the car 2 seconds after fucking killing a huge, massive bong bowl. It's not the smartest idea. And don't drive with the effing, at best, at the zero level of compromise amongst all people of differing opinions. We have to be able to build consensus around this. Driving with the open product, driving with it in consumable accoutrement, or that's the wrong word. Accoutrement works, but what's the other word? Paraphernalia. Lighting up a fucking joint while you're driving. Those are things we agreed to in the laws we voted in. Now, I wasn't very involved in any state's processes, but because, the system basically, essentially considers me a toaster oven for all intents and purposes. That is the correct way to say that phrase, by the way. But I digress, right? That's the trade-off that you make. You want to make it legal to be able to get your weed? Boom. Here are the restrictions that you agree to so that we can have some common ground of presumed safety. I edited myself in the middle of that sentence. Presumed safety. I didn't want to be redundant. I couldn't find a way to make 3 of presumptions work, but you get my point, right? Like, it's just that simple. While there are people that can definitely handle a couple of more drinks than other people, get in the car, and most of the time get home really safe, those, the lawmen are sticklers for letters of the law. And since we agree to the system, that's what we agree to when we sign away all the forms in getting a driver's license. That's the other thing, right? In terms of like building a new culture, like we got to be smarter than everyone presumes we can't be, because we can be. We may be stoners. That doesn't mean we're stupid, right? We're human beings. Therefore, we have the capacity to make stupid choices and behave in stupid ways without even knowing we chose, for sure. But just because we're stoners doesn't mean we're stupid. Just because we're cannabis enthusiasts doesn't mean we have to be dumb. Just because there's archetypes and stereotypes out there doesn't mean we have to be them. Doesn't mean we have to cancel culture our own culture. Of course not. So, fundamentals, man. We don't have enough. We don't have a savvy, well-established, handed down, lived through experience, informed set of norms about weed. So this is my effort to try to have that breaking conversation in public discourse, if I may be so bold. And while we may or may not agree with the laws as they are presented, that's why we are supposed to be engaged in civic activity, right? We're supposed to. We got to make an effort. Well, we can talk more about that at greater length at another time. Lo and behold, I've talked about it in previous episodes, so you can tactically put a pin in that. As always, friends, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me and my favorite Sparky thing. Oh, there's a fumble. Wow, I totally just man fumbled the glass bowl that, the glass pipe that I use. Why they're called bowls? Because inside the pipe, the end of the pipe is a little bowl shape. I just sort of let it bounce on the desk, so it emptied out, and it's embarrassing, and I'm glad it didn't break. But as the French say, and this is both fun and funny and deeply wise, because it's zen as fuck. As the French say, where there is glass, there shall be breaking. Thank you, DJ Zed, for that delightful track entitled Bright and Early. A brain dance groove pad audio entertainment track for your delightful delights. It's nice and short. Will I keep it? Maybe? Yeah, sure. Move this down over here. So yeah, all those things I was saying, they're important. Whatever it is I came to my conclusions, I render them there for you to consider and to think through and to question. What the fuck was I talking about? I don't remember. But stay safe, stay sane, stay reasonable, dear friends. Oh, right. Yeah. There's still a long way to go, right? The Portland over there, I'm looking at them now. What's up, Portland? Going a little overboard, decriminalizing all the hard drugs. Yay, I guess. But the real test of that, as always, friends, is what kind of counterbalance programming do we provide? Decriminalizing all those drugs helps a little in terms of, you're taking away a really easy cash cow for the imprisonment, the people in prison, or the school to prison pipeline industry, whatever that phrase. It's the industrial prison complex. But as always, you got to double check the details wherein the devil resides, right? And I'm not making accusations or aspersions of any kind whatsoever. I'm just saying that as a general rule. For example, people getting all too relaxed and groovy, no, that would be the opposite of groovy, too relaxed and complacent about weed just because it's not legal, right? It's just been decriminalized for medicinal and recreational use. You still get into a lot of trouble if you're doing it the wrong way. If you're growing it, cultivating it, processing it, shipping it, moving it, transporting it the wrong way. As opposed to a tomato, right? Like tomatoes, either way you call it, it can just go in your trunk and off you go. It can go in your front seat, back seat, on the roof rack. If you grow tomatoes, you can have tomatoes with you, on you, anywhere you want, and then stuff them in your mouth at any time. And nothing bad will happen. Now, am I suggesting we should take it to that extreme with drugs? Hell no. There are some drugs that are indeed categorically bad, like meth. It's just bad for you. There's no upside. There's no healing. There's no, this is good for you. Like booze, I'm not a huge fan of anymore. And I used to take some stupid, retarded pride in being a bit of a booze hound. But I wanted to be a classy Rat Pack, cocktail lounge kind of act. But it's toxic. It's no good for you, right? Now some cynics say that cannabis can't be any different, that it must be the same. But evidence abounds. And this is what I'm talking about. As we forge forward in building a new economic establishment, and this time hopefully one that will last, an economic market, a community of entrepreneurs and growing, established corporate endeavors, etc., all the fancy language. We really would make sure that we build consensus around some wisdom as our culture, as opposed to just whatever sells most. Because the next thing you know, we'll have turned cannabis, which can be a powerful, healing, spiritual ally, on many levels and will have turned her into a toxic waste dump of an addiction. And we don't need that. We do not need that, friends. Okay, but I feel like I always get worked up about the same general vagaries when I turn my thoughts towards doing a Cannabis Talk episode. So I'm going to restrain myself from rambling any further, and I'm going to think about what I want to talk about Cannabis Talk a little bit more granularly next time. But as always, friends, I humbly thank you for listening. Whether it's a good episode, a mediocre episode, a terrible episode, some of you are powering through and listening to a lot of episodes, and that helps me get better at all of it. But help me know which ones are your favorite episodes by listening to them again. I don't know.
Well, folks, that bowl is cashed and dusted. Thank you for joining me for yet another most excellent session of Cannabis Talk. Stay lit, pay it forward, and remember, the world needs healing, and cannabis heals. Until next time, I have been your spiritual cannabis mystic talk show host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. For coughing. As my old and very dear friend of mine used to say, I mean, I guess he still says it, I don't know. He would say, after a good, solid coughing fit, he would, kudos himself. He'd pat himself on the back and say something like, yeah, way to get it in there. And I would ask him I asked him once, after a while of watching him do that, what is that about, man? And he responded, when you're coughing, it's like the opposite of when you're coughing because of cigarettes. When you have a smoker's cough, you're hacking out your lung because it's all gross and nasty and dying from the tar. When you've got the cannabis cough, you're getting the healing nutrients, CBDs and THCs, from the cannabis smoke deeper in your lungs, which is helping to push out and clean all the gross, nasty shit. So that cough is healing. It's the healing cough. Of course, I am severely paraphrasing him, and he was, at the time of that conversation, we were both extremely high. But I digress. A little bonus material for the next Cannabis Talk episode. Okay. And now for the outro.